Hi there. So today I want to talk about what really happened at members' time at the last board meeting on January 24th. I had done a prior video that you may have seen, and that was probably uploaded on the next day or later that day. I can't really remember, but it's now 2 weeks later. Today is Saturday, February 7th, and we have the newspaper out. Not the paper newspaper, but the online version comes out 2 weeks after the board meetings, because what happens is you have the board meeting and then members have until Monday at 4 p.m. to submit a letter to the editor, and then the editor has a week to put the paper together. So it's about 2 weeks. And then the online paper comes out, and then you have to wait like a whole other week for the newspaper. So I love a real newspaper, but this has to suffice because I'm a big nerd and I like to read the paper as soon as I get it. But actually I really like to read the letters to the editor because that's the only interesting section to me. So there's that. So finally we have the paper, and I want to look at what happened at members' time, but I do think you should still check out my video if you haven't, called Members' Time Mayhem, because it was crazy and there were a lot of people. So typically these board meetings are super boring, and that's why nobody goes to them. They occur monthly on a Saturday. Usually they start at 8:30. Members' time is at 11. So basically they have 2.5 hours of business where they talk about the manager's report, and then they talk about the reports of all the committees, and each committee usually makes a motion and the board of directors discuss it. They talk about new business, they talk about old business, they read like minutes of new proposals or whatnot. It's all very boring, so a lot of people don't attend. They do it hybrid, so you can either go down in person to the conference center or you can join on Zoom. So there's no excuses for people not to go. And I attend all of them because I want them to know that I'm watching them. So generally there's there's 9 of them. There's 9 directors, and there are about 10 or 12 people on staff that attend these meetings. So that brings you to like 20 people, and generally each meeting has maybe 30 people. So that means including me and like 9 other members might be attending. But at this meeting we had like, I don't know, like 15 people in person, and we had a great deal of people online. The total in the room I think was like 54 or 60, because at some point I came down in person because I wanted to be there in person because it was important to me. So it was well attended and members represented. Members showed up. I thank those members for expressing their free speech and their voice in this community to be heard and to also see what happens. So now I want to take time to actually break down what happened per what Connie, our nice little editor, puts in our newspaper. So I need my glasses because I'm becoming an old lady, just so you know, when I read. So, although I guess I could just increase the size of this on my screen, but anyway, can't do that on my phone. So Connie is our editor. She's very good at doing her job of censoring us. Here's talking to you, Connie. She knows how I feel about her because I write her that. So one of Connie's functions is, I'll take my glasses off. One of Connie's functions is to edit the newspaper, and her job is to make our association look as good as it possibly can, because again, this is an organization. When you become a director on the board, you no longer are just a person in the community. You all of a sudden become a fiduciary agent responsible for the organization. So they don't care about us, just so you know. Like, they do, but they don't. They care about the association and how it looks to outsiders who are buying properties in here now or in the future. That's their primary concern, is to make sure, you know, they minimize as much liability and they don't get sued and we're not exposed to lawsuits, this, that, and the other. But they're not there just to take care of us, okay? So that's Connie's number one job. And the way that she does that is by only publishing the good stuff. So basically all of this is kind of like this whole newspaper right now, which is 48 pages, which is very, very short issue, is like all about, it's always self-promoting, like who are the best employees, what did the employees do. There's an article by our new president, Phil, that's like, thank you, thank you, thank you, because they want just to make it seem like everybody's happy nowadays and everything's sunshines and rainbows and not really talk about any issues. So she does her job well by censoring us. And the way that she censors us is that she controls the members' time, which I'm going to talk about in this, and she controls the letters to the editors. So nothing that she deems controversial or inflammatory or defamatory can get past her. So that's letters to the editor. And in general, the less information, the better for them. That's how they want to keep it. So she does a good job at censoring us. So this is what came up, and this is what she wrote. The following members shared their views on the topics listed during the members' time portion of the Hemlock Farms HFCA Board of Directors hybrid meeting, January 24th. Okay, so Pete Mango. It says, Pete Mango welcomed McKenna and Spencer Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone as a member are generally really kind, really wonderful people, and everyone is welcoming of our new board of directors, because even though they were just appointed, because we unfortunately have this situation going on where our board president and the vice president resigned because of, in my opinion, what's going on with public safety and their failure to address it with integrity. The remaining 7 directors selected Hannah McKenna and Mike Spencer. So it's not their fault. So everyone was very nice and welcoming to them. So he welcomed them, and then he talked about the Pledge of Allegiance. So Connie will only put it in here that Pledge of Allegiance was the topic. So what happened was, which I explained in that other video, our new board president, Phil, who went running into the grave of John Hannock as soon as he resigned, he refused, like he didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance. So, you know, there was, I talked about it in the other video, but basically it has become customary in recent years for this board to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Phil didn't do that, and he had to be prompted by our community manager, Sean, to do it. So Pete got up and basically said, why didn't you do the Pledge of Allegiance? And so he said, I didn't want to. That was his response. I didn't want to. Like, you're a professional here now. You've been on the board. This is your second term. This is your second year of your second term. Like, be a big boy and answer the question with like a responsive answer. Or that was his true answer. He didn't want to. But that's the person, Phil. That is his personal freedom to not recite the Pledge of Allegiance. But when you step into a fiduciary role, responsibility, board of director, and you're now the president and leading this group of people, you have a higher standard. And he failed there. So it was basically a pathetic discussion that ensued, because he just sat there and Pete was like, you know, I'm a red-blooded veteran and you should have done the Pledge of Allegiance. And he just sat there pathetic, in my opinion. So I'll go on to that. So then Steve Goldman, he was virtual. Steve Goldman attends every board meeting, unless I guess he probably has something going on personal wise, but he tries to attend every meeting. And he was virtual, and he talked about Forest Drive Gate, and you have to go through one topic each until the next round of people. And then his second topic was investigation cost. And I didn't pay attention to the Forest Drive Gate was just about the gate being left open. So he asked why the gate was left open. He had heard that it was open for several days. They rebutted, I think Sean might have rebutted, the community manager, and said it was like a day or something like that. So somebody clarified how long it was open, but let's just forget the overarching issue. The gate was left open. Like, we're supposed to be in a gated community. Why was the gate left open? I don't think anybody followed that up to actually ask the question, why was the gate left open? And why did it take so long to close it? So these are the things that happen at members' time that don't get addressed. So his second topic was about investigation cost. And I'm being honest, I can't really remember. Steve, if you're out there, put a comment in the comments on this video, because I don't remember what their response was. My guess is that there was no response because they weren't telling us anything. If you remember, I told you that the preamble always says that members have to be respectful because, you know, we're assumed to be very disrespectful human beings just in general. So that's how we get treated at the beginning of a meeting. And twice that day, at the beginning of the meeting and then at the beginning of members' time at 11, our new president, Phil, stated, we've concluded an investigation and it will not be discussed any further. So that was their response from the get-go. So I'm assuming that the investigation cost question wasn't answered. So Ray Larkin got up, he welcomed Hannah and Mike, and he also said something about the Pledge of Allegiance and that it should be respected and that it was totally inappropriate for what Phil did. And there's a note here of passing of a staff member. That's not standing out in my memory. It wasn't, I'm not sure if I didn't know who was on staff, but Ray is someone that he has been very active in our community, and he also demands accountability, and he hasn't been attending a lot of recent meetings, but I'm glad that he showed up to this meeting. So again, she doesn't put in what it actually says, so you can't remember. So like where it says that Steve talked about investigation cost, I don't know what happened, and I was there. So they record these meetings, but we don't get access to the recordings, okay? So I don't know what happened with the investigation cost, and I'm not recalling the staff member. So the next person who spoke was Michael Miller. Michael Miller is extremely actively involved. I'm sure everybody knows him. He's married to the Tracy Miller, who was a director on the board, and he also was virtual. He welcomed Hannah and Mike to the board, and he talked about the water company reserves. So Mike is very studious, he's very intelligent, and he does a lot of his own research and cares very much about this community. A lot of people give him and his wife a lot of hell, but you know, you can care about a community and you can ask hard questions. You don't have to just drive around and say, oh, hey, everything's fine, take all of our money. No, like you can actually ask hard questions and ask them to be accountable, and that's what these people do. So that's why I actually respect people like this more than other people when they come out of their little corners on social media as keyboard warriors. Tracy Lyons. It says Tracy Lyons welcomed McKenna and Spencer. So I noted that Mike Spencer, I heard he was on the board at Wallenpaupack, and that's a wonderful school district. So I said, you know, hopefully he's part of the reason that it's a wonderful school district. It says Pledge of Allegiance with no other notations. So I basically reiterated what Pete and Ray said. And I said that it was disgraceful and that you are in a position now where you need to be the leader as the president of the board. And you already like failed your first test. So you better get it together or you shouldn't have this position. And of course, like I said, it's fine for him to have his own opinion. But when you are representing, it's like, okay, you're the president of the United States now. Like, you have to do certain things that are ceremonial just because you don't want to. Like, that's just so bizarre to me that that's even something that came out of his mouth. So I gave him my thoughts. Then it says recorded meetings. So it doesn't say what that means. What does recorded meetings mean? So what it means is that I said, you're recording these meetings. Why aren't you making them available to the membership? And you know what like, first of all, none of the directors responded. The other thing is, so many of them are so new that they haven't even bet. 4 of them are so new that 2 were just appointed 2 weeks ago, and 2 were appointed 6 months ago at this point. And the other ones have only been on for 1-year terms. Some of them are on it that shouldn't be on it because their terms expired and nobody wants their job, so they are stuck with it. Jim Santamena and Mike Pachersky. But Robert Rodia, his term is coming up this summer, so hopefully he won't be running again. Hi, Robert. So anyway, none of them answered. It's like, why aren't you guys making this available so that we're all seeing the meeting right now, virtually or in person, and you're recording these meetings, and yet they are not being available to all of the other people that live here and want to know what's going on possibly. So that's why I'm summarizing this for you. So Sean, our community manager, was the only one who responded at that point, and he said, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I said, well, why don't you in one of your secret meetings, one of your secret closed sessions, find out and give us an answer? So the next topic that I brought up was about public safety notifying outside agencies. So I'm actually very proud of you, Connie, if you're watching. Public safety, I asked, has there ever been a time when public safety has not notified, as required by law, an outside agency, law enforcement agency, as in Pennsylvania State Police, of a criminal issue, a criminal matter? Silence. Absolute silence. I said, has there ever been a time where there was an issue of domestic violence or sexual assault or rape, and it was not reported by our public safety to the proper law enforcement authorities? Silence. So that's when I said to the audience, you should take note of this, because non-responsiveness is absolutely an answer. Okay? So I'll let you sit with that. Verifying staff hours, that's all it says. Again, thank you, Connie, for not giving any detail. Verifying staff hours, I asked, has there ever been a time when employees, like specifically I'm asking about public safety, when employees, because you have to remember, I was a field worker. I still am in certain ways. There's a lot of trust that goes into that. So yeah, you swipe in at the beginning of the day and then you're out on patrol. They don't know what you're doing. They don't know if you're taking naps. They don't know if you're having sex. They don't know if you're doing drugs. They don't know if you're out getting coffee and chatting it up. Like, who verifies this? So that was my question. Who's verifying staff hours? And like, still no response. So I said, was there ever a time that the, public safety director didn't or swiped in for an officer who was upstate on a hunting trip? No response. Like, they can't answer these questions because either they don't want to or they're withholding the truth. So those are the reasons why I want you all to come and ask these questions alongside me, or at least hear them and see what they do, because they're hiding it from you, and you're paying for this quality of service and leadership on your dues that you're going to pay next month. Our dues are due on March 1st. Unless you do a payment plan, you better cough up your $3,000, because this is the quality of services you're getting. Investigation doesn't say anything. It literally just says the word investigation. So I had a lot of questions about the investigation and they didn't answer any of them. Email, I asked about the email. It's just, like, I don't even remember half the stuff that I asked because that's what Connie does. So she wrote email. So yes, Tracy discussed email because my question was, somebody on the board likely doxed me as an anonymous user in a Facebook community group and took an email that was confidential, which I don't care, I'll show anybody, but I didn't because it was disrespectful to our board president at the time, last February 2025. And I didn't feel like it should be publicly posted because I was very mean to him, because I was mad at him. So somebody posted it and I said, which one of you? I said, I emailed you. I asked you to investigate who doxed my email and posted my email on social media groups. Only directors and the managers were on that email. You blacked out all of the directors' names on the email in the social media post, and you kept my email open and tried to make it like, oh my God, everybody's going to think Tracy's mean. Everybody already knows what Tracy's like, so you weren't surprising anybody. And they're all just like looking at each other, and I'm like, did you do an investigation on my email? Because you're not, who did it? And that's when Michael Pechersky said that he did it. He said, yeah, I did it. And I said, yeah, because your son was also looking me up on social media because I could see, that he was looking me up. Some people call that stalking. But anyway, I said, was it you, Michael? Because you also had your son looking me up. And he said, yeah, it was me. And then that's when Pete Mango kind of gave him a way out and was like, are you joking? Are you serious? I'm like, don't give him a way out. Because then he recanted it, but he said it, and people don't say things if it's not true, okay? So anyway, they took no accountability for that, and then actually Michael Pechersky started like fighting with me, and then the other board directors were like trying to shut him up because he is generally unhinged and shouldn't be on the board. And I told him that. I said, you shouldn't even be on here anymore. Citations. So that's the last thing that it says that I talked about at members time. I don't even remember what I said, so I'm going to have to come back to that. But that's what I'm saying that Connie does. And they empower her to do that, if not direct her to do that, because they don't want people to know what actually happens at members time. So I don't know what citations is. I can't really remember. All right, the next column, it says Georgine Snyder welcomed Hannah and Mike. She said Pledge of Allegiance, like, oh, no big deal because this is a business meeting and it's inappropriate. I disagree. I think that this is a quasi-government meeting, just like as if you were doing something with the local town board or village board or a legislator meeting. This is a government agency. So I disagree with her, but that's personal disagreement. And I love Georgine, by the way. She congratulated Anne-Marie Drake, the comptroller, for the unheard of high collection rate. Notice the amount of words, okay, when something's positive. This is really important. The amount of words that Connie chose to highlight something positive. She actually acknowledged the full name. So Georgine's comment says, congratulated comptroller Anne-Marie Drake for the unheard of high collection rate. Whereas my comment is either investigation, email, citations, and then for like Steve Goldman, Forest Drive Gate, or Michael Miller said water company reserves. But no, we want to fully acknowledge that Anne-Marie Drake is collecting dues at record high numbers, which is great. So actually, she didn't note that I put that on the record because it's reminding me. I stood back up at the end and I said, that's great that Anne-Marie Drake is doing such a great job, but I want to commend the members who care enough about this community to pay their dues and pay their dues timely and work proactively with Anne-Marie to get their dues paid up to date. Because Anne-Marie can't collect it if there's unwilling participants, and people care about living here. So that I put on the record. It wasn't noted in my members' time, but just be aware that they use more words when it has to do with recognizing something positive. Anita Rolkos, I don't know who that is, but she did speak about members' time. I think she was the woman that was there in person. She stood up and she said, I don't understand what happened at members' time by what I read in the newspaper each month. So that's what kicked it off. And actually, Connie put it out of order because she spoke before me. And I was saying, Connie has the recordings, because they were like, we don't. So Sean, the community manager, said, well, we don't want to misstate what a member says. And I said, it's recorded. I was sitting in the audience. I said, it's recorded for Connie, the editor, to document what we talk about. And this woman, Anita, was literally saying, I can't understand what happens at members' time. Is it going to change? It's not going to change. We can keep hoping. So So let's see next month if it changes. Jerry Lofredo, she talked about PPL tree trimming. That wasn't my interest, so, but that's what's noted. Carolyn Guinan, she asked about the investigation. It says investigation, again, one word, so you don't know what she asked. And she actually got up and she said, I don't want to say too much about her, but she basically said, I'm concerned for my safety. I want to know what happened with this public safety investigation. And they basically didn't give her any information. And then these men on the board were like, you don't have to worry. And how offensive is that to a woman for a man? And she's like, you're not the person who is going to tell me whether I am safe. I am the person who is going to decide if I am safe. And he's like, well, I let my daughter, know that she's safe in this community. And she's like, you have the information about what happened in the public safety investigation. It's a power imbalance. When a board director has the information, they can appropriately protect and plan for their family. This woman stood up and said, I don't have that information. I want to know what the issues are, at least some information to know what the issues are. Stonewalled, no information whatsoever. These people were absolutely infuriated by the board's response to this issue. So then she had moved on to deteriorating properties. That's just in here, doesn't tell you what they discussed at all. They talked about how there's a whole method to, addressing those, but you have to wait. It takes many, 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 many years. Rhoda spoke, Rhoda Illich, who is the person who was the woman who was completely disrespected by management and the board for 9 months plus, because it's been going on. It was really never resolved in my opinion. But for 2 years, she's been inappropriately treated, in my opinion, by them over the lighting situation that she complained about, and they never addressed public safety. Thank you for not appropriately addressing that, in my opinion. She also mentioned the investigation, which is all that Connie put, and they didn't, they weren't giving any information. And then she also put transparency to what Rhoda spoke about. So Rhoda called on them to be transparent. Now, I want you to know that Rhoda is an extremely strong, intelligent woman. And I believe she is an attorney, and I think she's a nurse or in some sort of medical field. But she is a dual degreed professional woman, and she has been totally degraded by these people because she's a part-timer who complains. And she's a part-timer who comes to her property and has a light shining in on her of a man who lives down in Florida, but decided to put it up on the street that shines into her house. And she's totally gaslit by our management because she wanted something to be done and they felt that she was a problem. So she called on them for transparency, and it's falling on deaf ears. John Lambert, he brought up stormwater management. That's all it says. I don't really care about that right now. Terry Truitt brought up hydrant reflectors and applauded DPW for snow ice removal, which they have done a great job. Debbie Gordon, she talked about transparency and respect. That's all it says there. Oh, let me go back to that. Terry Truitt, again, number of words, applauded DPW for snow/ice removal. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words because it was positive, versus Debbie Gordon spoke about transparency and respect. Now, if Debbie's comment was I highly respect DPW for the hard work that they did, that would be completely in there. But she was actually talking about the lack of respect that she sees conveyed from the board of directors and management toward the members as we talk, and that it's disgusting and horrible to witness and is a total travesty. And she also called on for more transparency. Mark Doyle, all it says is staff standards, and he got up there and he gave his opinion about how certain people should be fired, and all she put in there was staff standards. Carol Bagnall, she brought up Robert's rules, so that's all Connie put in there, because she too was talking about how utterly disrespectful she believed the board of directors and management were toward the members at that meeting and prior meeting probably, and suggested that they use Robert's rules. She also said disclosure, which I'm not recalling what disclosure means because it's a single word. And then she talked about safety in the community, which had to do, I think, with the investigation. But again, I have a pretty good memory because, you know, I had to do a lot of testifying as a caseworker, and I don't even remember, and I was there 2 weeks ago. So how are members supposed to know what the heck goes on? Another person, it says parking citations. Rosa Muniz talked about that. And I think it was because somebody got a ticket in the big, huge snowstorm that actually shut down like Pennsylvania and the Northeast that Sunday to Monday. And we didn't have school here for like 2 days. And somebody got $100 ticket instead of the public safety officer who we pay for looked up and called the driver's license of the member and said, can you come get your car? Or, hey, your car is parked out here. There's no sign. So our public safety director, Bill Durando, said, oh yeah, we're looking into that. We're going to put some signs up. We'll talk to them. Hey, how about you be respectful and you call the member and say, your car is parked out here. Are you okay? Did somebody die? Was there an emergency? Did you have to like rescue somebody? No, just put a $100 ticket on them. So anyway, this is just an example of what I'm going to have to do every month to tell you what happens in members' time, because Connie, you're just not doing a good job, but you are for what you're getting paid to do by the community, by your bosses. So good on ya. All right, that's it for now. Thank you.